A small airport, Central America. The middle of a civil war. In an interlude of peace, wounded and disabled guerrilla fighters have been shepherded out of the war zone and brought to safety. This humanitarian action is carried out by the Red Cross, known around the world for its neutrality during conflict. Respect for the symbol of the Red Cross allows this guerrilla fighter to pass unharmed through the lines of his enemy. The Red Cross intervenes for him and for all who suffer, in countries around the world, and today in El Salvador. The explorers named it El Salvador, which means the Savior. Like other Central American countries, it is lush and green and poor. The Salvadoran people are known for their hard work and perseverance, but they are battling formidable odds. For 8 years, a civil war has splintered families, driven people off their lands into overcrowded cities, and killed the young. Salt was poured on the wounds of this country when an earthquake ripped through its heavily populated capital. For many in El Salvador, each day is a struggle. But they are joined in their struggle by the Red Cross. Here, the Red Cross is doing the work it carries on throughout the world, feeding the hungry, sheltering the homeless, treating the sick, protecting victims of war. La Cruz Roja Salvadoreña, the National Red Cross Society, the cornerstone of Red Cross humanitarian relief, providing help for the people where none else can be found. For these elderly women, it means they won't go to bed night after night with empty stomachs.
Muchas gracias. Que le vaya bien. Muchas gracias. Hay que portarse bien, hoy que menos ya no hay que andar bailando mucho.
Too old to care for themselves, they come here for bags of grain. The Red Cross Society of El Salvador is one of 145 Red Cross and Red Crescent societies worldwide. Each responds to the special needs of its own people.
Each national society is different in the sense that the needs of the countries vary. In a country that is underdeveloped, there are so many needs. There are so many needs for the population that the governments cannot fulfill.
The burden for meeting many of these needs falls to the National Red Cross Society. Basic human services are provided, such as medical care offered by this clinic. Today, its doctors will assist more than 200 people. Injured laborers wait to be treated so they can return to work. A mother has a face wound attended to. If the Red Cross wasn't here to stitch up this woman's wound, who would do it? For her and for so many others, the Red Cross Clinic is the only medical assistance available.
Operaciones recientes.
Not far from the clinic, the Red Cross is working to meet another critical problem, the demand for blood. Like many other national societies, the Red Cross in El Salvador helps to meet the country's essential need for blood. 40% of the blood supply is now furnished by the Red Cross. A pedestrian struck by a car lies seriously injured. Highly trained volunteers, known as socorristas, rush to the scene. They respond because in El Salvador, the Red Cross is the primary ambulance and rescue service. In a matter of minutes, the Red Cross rushes this man into an ambulance bound for the hospital. A fast response may decide whether someone lives or dies. October 1986, a massive earthquake shakes the city of San Salvador. The Red Cross response is immediate. Hundreds of volunteers converge in the devastated areas, sometimes using their bare hands to dig through the rubble. A disaster victim remembers fearing for her daughter's life and finding her alive. I cried, I hugged her, and I said, "Daughter." She was crying too. I was crying because she was crying, because the emotion was great. It was extremely rough. No water, no electricity, nothing to eat. I basically lost everything. In the aftermath of the earthquake, the Red Cross of El Salvador faced an overwhelming situation. 300,000 families were left homeless. Survivors desperately needed food and water. Help came to the people of El Salvador from all over the world. Food, medical supplies, vehicles, and emergency funds were rushed to the disaster area by other Red Cross societies. Disaster relief such as this is coordinated by the League of Red Cross and Red Crescent societies. The League, based in Geneva, Switzerland, is a federation of Red Cross societies. Its existence assures that no individual Red Cross society faces a catastrophe like this alone. To administer relief operations, the League recruits disaster specialists from national Red Cross societies. These delegates are sent to the stricken area, where they collaborate with the Red Cross of that country.
But I think we need to be real careful of how these...
In El Salvador, there are 3 delegates, 1 from the Spanish and 2 from the American Red Cross, Israel Zuniga and Rene Carrillo, who is chief of the League delegation.
Yeah, the system that we use for the League delegates is that we borrow people from national societies, in this case from the American Red Cross. The American Red Cross has now been training people for the last 8 or 10 years, and those people are on call, and are on call for emergency periods where they can be sent to any part of the world to provide that assistance that is needed between the League, the national societies, and in many cases just with the general public.
Assistance to disaster victims continues for months and months. Emergency food from the League is brought to La Providencia, a shanty town of 300 families that was built from the ruins of the earthquake. There are many such La Providencias in San Salvador. League delegate Israel Zuniga oversees the feeding operation.
You're going to find that the majority of these people really do need these food. They don't have work. They have 5 or more members of the family, sometimes as many as 14 people living in a small shack. And you'll find that the kids, when you see these kids, are actually malnourished. And the food that they get may be all they get for some time to come. We work hand in hand with the Salvadoran Red Cross when it comes to the actual operation. You find that the League administers the programs while the Salvadoran workers actually carry out the actual work.
One by one, a name is called, and an earthquake victim takes his parcel of food. Although it is time-consuming, this orderly process ensures that all those who need food receive it. Operating independently of government or any other groups, the Red Cross channels food directly to those who need it, people to people. No less essential than food is adequate shelter. After their homes were reduced to rubble, thousands of earthquake victims were forced to live in huts of sheet metal scraps and cardboard. But many of these people will be helped. Through the League's support, their huts will be replaced with earthquake-resistant housing with proper sanitation. Today, Renee talks over some changes in the construction plans with community leader Don Francisco, a local shoemaker. His people will be the first to benefit from the League housing program. They have a strong sense of pride as they immerse themselves in planning, designing, and eventually building the dwellings they will live in.
Como ustedes pueden ver, este es el proyecto, los planos del proyecto de las casas que tiene planteado el proyecto de 2JC.
The group, the community will receive these homes free of charge, but the community will be doing most of the work. They will do all the hard work of shovels, picks, removal of dirt, and later on they will build all the doors, the windows, they will build the inside walls, all the work that is not technical work they will do.
The rebuilding of Don Francisco's community is an example of the kinds of disaster relief projects conducted by the League throughout the world. Before dawn, Red Cross teams gather up wounded guerrilla soldiers at 9 prearranged locations. The moment is tense and dangerous. The FMLN guerrillas and the government troops whom they oppose have agreed to hold their fire and allow the Red Cross to pass by. The wounded will be escorted through their enemy's lines to the airport. If all goes well, they will be flown out to countries that have promised them sanctuary. As the first groups arrive, they are taken to a holding area. Here, they will wait throughout the day until all the other teams arrive safely. Only a short time ago, these wounded and disabled guerrillas, some very young, were fighting against the soldiers that now surround them. But for this moment at least, fighters from both sides agree to a fragile peace. This humanitarian action is carried out by the All-Swiss International Committee of the Red Cross, the ICRC. The ICRC mandate is to act as a neutral intermediary in places of armed conflict, giving protection and assistance to the victims. For the Red Cross, there are no good people or bad people, deserving or undeserving. There are only people who suffer, who are wounded and weary. Today, it is the guerrillas who are helped. Tomorrow, it may be the government soldiers. A classroom at National Police Headquarters in the town of Suchitoto. An ICRC delegate explains Red Cross humanitarian principles to these soldiers. They must decide daily whether to respect the Red Cross symbol and the Geneva Conventions, laws that forbid cruelty in armed conflict. This ongoing education is crucial. Both sides in a conflict must respect the Red Cross and humanitarian law if the Red Cross is to carry out its work. ICRC delegates, along with volunteers of the Salvadoran Red Cross, traveled through the war zone to Jutiapa, one of numerous small villages victimized by the war. Until recently, Jutiapa was a ghost town, the farmers driven off their land by the fighting. They're now returning, but to barren fields. Although the ICRC brings food, seed, and fertilizer, there is a more important reason for their presence.
Well, in general, we can say that an important aim of the ICRC presence here in Jutiapa, but of course also in other places in this country, is the protection of the civil population. A population who is between the fronts of the two parties in this armed conflict.
ICRC delegates meet with villagers to see if they have been harmed by the warring parties. If abuses have occurred, the ICRC can take protective action. The opportunity is also taken to deliver a message about a missing person. Almost as bad as losing a son or a father is not knowing where he is or whether he is still alive. Sometimes the missing are found here, in prison. One mission of the ICRC is to ensure the humane treatment of prisoners. This is done by going to where they are detained and giving confidential reports on their treatment to the authorities. There are 3 conditions that must be granted. The prisoners must be seen in their place of detention. The visits must be private, without witnesses. And the ICRC must be able to repeat the visits at any time. To a prisoner, cut off from the outside world, a visit by the ICRC shows him that he is not alone and gives him hope. Comalapa Airport. The last of the ICRC teams has arrived safely, and the wounded guerrilla fighters prepare to leave their country. Their future is uncertain, but the Red Cross has given them shelter away from the battle, in a place where they can heal. In a world filled with fighting and suffering, one international organization remains apart from politics, committed only to helping and healing. It is this neutrality that creates this interval of peace and understanding. But the struggle is ongoing, not just in El Salvador, but wherever people suffer and need assistance. Through the work of the individual Red Cross societies, the League, and the ICRC, victories are won every day, all over the world. Treating the sick and the injured, giving hope to the imprisoned, shelter to the homeless, food to the hungry. All by people in a movement begun over a century and a quarter ago, known by the symbol of the Red Cross.